Hello and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one, first, and only baseball-centric podcast, and we are once again back here in March. We are in the heat of spring training. The World Baseball Classic Qualifiers are going on right now, and college baseball is about to start its conference matchups, which I'm so ever excited for. I'm so excited to be here as we're inching closer and closer to the regular season, and we got a lot to talk about today. There isn't much news necessarily, but today we will be breaking down 30 through 15 when it comes to teams' best players. I saw this concept on TikTok and YouTube, and I figured it'd be a fun thing to cover for myself. So we'll be covering each team's best player and ranking them over the next 2 weeks. So again, like I said, news is a little bit scarce. AL Rookie of the Year in 2024 for the New York Yankees, Luis Heel, will miss at least 6 weeks with a lat strain, so the Yankees will be without one of their aces. Sean Murphy of the Atlanta Braves is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a rib injury. And Sean Manaea will miss time, not a specific amount of time, via Carlos Mendoza for an oblique strain, so he's going to start 2025 in the IL. But, the Mets, I think, still have enough to help out that rotation, but still, Sean Manaea is a very consistent pitcher. So we'll see. Those are 3 pretty decent-sized injuries when it comes to the baseball world here. Really, the only major claim/signing was former Rockies closer Justin Lawrence. He was waived by the Rockies, which was an interesting move to me. And the Pittsburgh Pirates picked him up, and I think that was a great move with guys like David Bednar really struggling in 2024. I think he can take some stress off of them. So while Lawrence did struggle, he had a rough 2024, posting a 6.49 ERA, 43 earned runs, and 52 innings pitched. That's pretty rough. That is really, really rough. 43 earned runs and 52 innings pitched is pretty bad, especially for being a closer, at least for that front half of the season. But still, maybe he can go find himself a new home in the Berg. I think that the Pirates are at least having a formation of something going on and trying to pick up players like him that are high risk or low risk, high reward are a good idea. So with that being said, we're just going to go quickly talk about the World Baseball Classic qualifiers. The current Tucson group consists of Colombia, Brazil, Germany, and China. Brazil got a key win over China. Colombia has already clinched a spot in the World Baseball Classic. And there's a few decent names on the Colombia national team, such as former Brave Julio Teheran, former Yankee Gio Urshela, and former Ray Harold Ramirez, the super utility guy, as Jeff Passan likes to say. So yeah, there's a few decent players on there, and I'm really excited for the World Baseball Classic, as on Wednesday we are 365 days away from the World Baseball Classic of 2026, which is always a fun event to watch. We all remember the most recent one, Trout versus Ohtani, teammates playing against each other. That was intense. And I really hope that the one next year is just as exciting, because when you put baseball on the world stage, such a global game, it can really, really help bolster it internationally and domestically within the United States. So let's hope the next one is just as exciting as the last one. So with that being said, we're going to be ranking players, or teams' best players, rather, today. And I did a lot of thinking with it, at least a little bit. Mainly through Baseball Reference, but still. And for number 30, you can kind of bounce around. There are 2 teams especially. The worst team in the AL, the worst team in the NL. Both kind of struggle with who you can pick for their best player, but number 30 is going to be the Miami Marlins. And technically it should be Sandy Alcantara. The former Cy Young Award winner did not play at all in 2024. He had an injury-riddled fall from grace, which is really unfortunate. Even in 2023, he had a rough year, 4.14 ERA, 12 losses, and going, really not like his 2022 Cy Young year. I'm hoping that he can bounce back, but with a team like that around him, it's going to be really, really challenging. Technically, when it comes to WAR, actually, it was Otto Lopez was our best player in 2024, but with Jazz Chisholm being gone, Sandy Alcantara's future being up in the air, it's really hard to say who the best player in Miami is, but just for making this list a little bit easier, we're just going to go say it's Sandy Alcantara. And unfortunately, because he didn't play in 2024, struggled in 2025, we got to say that the Marlins have the worst best overall player. And then next, you're going to assume that it's the worst team in baseball history, but actually it's not. It's the Colorado Rockies, because by contract it should be Chris Bryant, even though he has been really, really bad. He's struggled with injuries. By WAR, it was Brenton Doyle, actually. I'm still going to go with Chris Bryant being their best player because, you know, they paid him all that money. That was one of the most random contract signings, not just in baseball, but in all of sports in general. That was a weird one. So, yeah, for number 29, give me the Colorado Rockies, give me Chris Bryant. And now we got the worst team in baseball history as of 2024. We got the Chicago White Sox. And they only had 5 starting hitters that had a positive WAR, and that says a lot. And the only reason that they're not lower on this list is because I really like Luis Robert Jr. I've been big on him for a long time, and I hope that he can finally escape that place that is the south side of Chicago and those Chicago White Sox. I really hope that he can get to a better team, and I think, honestly, it probably will be traded this year. But yeah, give me Luis Robert Jr. I still think he's got a lot of value. Even with a record-breaking season, he still hit 14 home runs and he slugged 379. I think that they did kind of tank his value, but I mean, again, it's kind of hard to play an elite level when just you struggle that much. But next, we got another team that really struggled this year at number 27. We got to go with the Angels, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, the Anaheim Angels, whatever you want to call them. If you ask me, I think they should go be the Anaheim Angels, and they should go have that capital A with the wing on it like they did in the early 2000s with the powder blues and the 2-part uniforms and pinstripes. I personally love those uniforms, but beside the point, statistically, it was Zach Neto posting a 5.1 WAR, hitting 23 home runs. But we all know it's Trout. When healthy, he is amazing. And when he's 100%, and let's hope he is, next year when I do these rankings, I could definitely see him going from 27th to top 15. If he plays at the level he has in his prime when he's healthy, this guy will be top 5. But again, if we see that is up in the air, we just got to hope we do as baseball fans and as sports fans. So number 27, give me Angels team with a Mike Trout that's just really struggled with injuries. Number 26 is going to be the Washington Nationals. They have they're building up a young core, which is really, really good. They got guys like CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, and James Wood. So I kind of struggled to really pick who it was, but I was going to go more off statistics, more off of a guy who played the full year, and it's got to be CJ Abrams. Dylan Cruz is coming up too. You still can't forget, but CJ Abrams statistically was their best player this year, and I think he's going to be really good. I've said this so many times on the show that I still think that overall the Nationals won the Juan Soto trade in the long term because the Padres have nothing to show for it outside of an NLCS appearance. And now he's on the New York Mets making a bunch of money. So the Padres did get a little bit in return when they traded him to New York. They got a solid return, but it's nothing compared to what the Washington Nationals got in return for Juan Soto initially. So I think the Nationals, despite selling their soul for that World Series in 2019, did make the right move by moving on from Juan Soto really, really early, because now you let teams like the New York Mets, who have the money to pay him that much money, pay him. Now that contract is your responsibility. So I think it's a good idea. Washington, not going to be competing for a while, but will definitely be back in the mix, I think, within the next 5 years if they can keep this young core together, especially if Abrams, James Wood, Dylan Cruz pans out, build up that rotation a little bit. I like the Nationals being at least better than they've been recently. And then next, we got the definition of mediocrity and the St. Louis Cardinals. And statistically, it was Mason Wynn, actually, which actually really did surprise me. I still think it's Arenado, just because of his amazing defensive prowess. He's still a great defensive third baseman. But yeah, it was really hard for me to pick someone with the Cardinals. The rotation's pretty lackluster. Still you got like Miles Michaelis. That's a problem. You can make an argument for Ryan Helsley too, but I leaned more Arenado simply because a closer can only pitch 1 or 2 innings. And yes, I do know that Helsley won reliever of the year, and it was very well deserved, but still give me Arenado. Next, you're going to be really surprised here to see them at 24. It's actually the Minnesota Twins, a team that should have been in the playoffs if they didn't just have an epic collapse. A lot of spread out talent, though. That's the name of the game for the Minnesota Twins. A lot of spread out talent. That's going to be the name of the game for a lot of teams we'll be talking about here within the next few moments. Yeah, I mean, it's Carlos Correa. He had a really good year. It's just the injury struggles, you know. So playing a full season has kind of been a struggle for Correa. The Twins still do have guys like Duran, one of the better closers in baseball, but still, I'm going to go Correa. I am kind of being biased. I'll straight admit it. I'm putting a lot more offensive players here than defensive players, as you can clearly see. But I mean, my overall take on the Twins is pretty much anyone can win that division. It's just Detroit and Kansas City really bolstered themselves at the right time. So a lot of it's up to Kansas City. Was that a fluke? Was it not a fluke? If not, Minnesota's going to struggle. If it is, then I think they can maybe pass them. But it's going to be a weird year. I mean, my take on the Twins is really hard to give because who knows what they'll be? Could they repeat last year, or will they just do what they've always done, make the playoffs and be bounced in the first round, not win a playoff game? So next is another team that's very hard to predict. Definition of a wild card team. We've already talked about them before, in the Tampa Bay Rays, another team with a lot of spread out talent. I just need them all. They just need all to step up at once. I mean, you got to say, you can make an argument for a few people here. As a Yandy Diaz, as a Brandon Lau, as a Shane McClanahan. I still think it's a toss-up between Lau and McClanahan, right? As of right now, with Randy Arozarena being gone. And honestly, at this point, it's starting to look like they may have won that trade. I always kind of thought he was overrated anyway, but, you know, we'll get to the Mariners here very soon. But again, it's a lot of it's about health. I think that they are going to improve just a little bit because they'll be playing at Steinbrenner Ballpark, so they won't be playing at arguably the second most. I mean, now they're both gone. Pitchers friendly ballpark. I mean, the Coliseum is no more when it comes to the A's, and then the Trop, at least for the foreseeable future, is no more. So those are the two most pitcher friendly ballparks. But beside the point, I do see Rays hitters, especially Rays power hitters, doing a lot more, playing in a more even ballpark. And I could be wrong here. I do believe that Steinbrenner Ballpark has the same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. So that means that right field porch is going to be really short. But correct me if I'm wrong. For some reason, I thought I read something about Steinbrenner Field having the exact same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. Because it also seems like a thing the Yankees would do. But next is the Seattle Mariners. I mean, we were just talking about them. A team that really didn't do a lot in the offseason. A team that could have done a lot more. Because that window is closing at a rapid rate, and that's not good for them at all. So, you'd say it would be J-Rod, but actually statistically it was Cal Raleigh. He led more at 4.7. And this team really just needs to get it together. I mean, it's now or never. They have a great rotation. They need to sacrifice some of those pitchers, to be honest with you guys, but it's a little bit too late now. I think they need to make some moves at the deadline if they're hanging out for it, but I don't think they will. Realistically, I still got to go J-Rod. I really, really like him. I'm still big on him. I think he's one of the best young talents in baseball, and I think he's going to continue to be really good in 2025. So I think he'll be higher up, but Mariners are a big wild card team. So we got another AL West team here at number 21, and we got the Oak Sacramento Vegas A's. Brent Rooker, 5.6 WAR, a young team coming together. I mean, there's a lot of young talent there. I mean, you got guys like Lawrence Butler who's starting to really break out. You got guys like JP Sears, who I've been big on for a few years, making it come together in Sacramento now, another team playing in a minor league ballpark, which, you know, we've talked about our issues with that. But Rooker was really good. The A's were not as bad as people said they would be, and I think that they're going to be a little bit better. I mean, I think that they can make an argument to not even be in last. I think that at this point they are better than the Angels once again, because the Angels did add some players, but a lot of them are older people. So, you know, we can see how that will go. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Oakland succeed in spite of John Fisher, but I don't think it's going to happen. But that division's winnable. I mean, it's on the way down, so who knows? Next, we have a former Oakland A at number 20. We have a former Oakland A leading up for the San Francisco Giants. And I mean, he won a Gold Glove this year. Matt Chapman did win a Gold Glove this year. It's just the list is getting more and more competitive right now. And that's the only reason that the Giants are at 20. Matt Chapman had a great year, one of the higher D-WARs out of everyone. He hit like 30-some home runs, I think 36, 37 home runs. And I think with guys now like Willy Adames and Justin Verlander, hopefully a healthy and more dominant Justin Verlander, they can be pretty decent. I just think that there's a lot of competition in that division. That's the only issue that they're going to have. Next is the Chicago Cubs, and you have Dansby Swanson. It was Dansby Swanson in 2024. This year will probably be Kyle Tucker or Justin Steele. Justin Steele continued to be really good this year, and he's actually one of my picks for Cy Young candidates. That's what we're going to be talking about here soon, too, is doing my award predictions. We'll be doing that here week after next, more than likely. I just figured I'd throw in these two episodes of ranking players, teams' best players. But yeah, Kyle Tucker, Justin Steele, I think it's a toss-up. Kyle Tucker had a great year with Houston last year, and I think that it was a good idea for them to go for the Cubs to go for him. They kind of laid under the radar for a little bit, and then now I think they're kind of ready to pounce back into it and be at least somewhat competitive, especially because that division is a winnable division. And next we got another NL Central team. And we got the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that really did a lot with a little this year. I mean, they lost their manager, Craig Counsell, and then they got Pat Murphy, who I think is as good, if not better, than Craig Counsell. And it was actually William Contreras who was their best player with Christian Yelich going down. I think Yelich objectively is their best player, William Contreras. I still think it's Yelich. Give me baseball Pete Davidson for the Brewers' best player, but more teams with spread out talent. And Chirino, I think Chirino will be their best player. He's one of the best young players in baseball, but still 1 or 2 more years before he is fully as dominant and he can maintain that consistent dominance. So next we have at 17. We have another guy who really, if he can maintain his dominance, can statistically be one of the best players in baseball, and that's the Cincinnati Reds with Elly De La Cruz, who had a really good year. And I think that if Elly can limit those strikeouts, he will be as good as any other shortstop in this game. I mean, the guy's a monster. The guy is huge. He's got a great arm, great bat, great speed. He's got pretty much every tool. He just needs to limit the Ks. That's really about it. At Cincinnati at 17, and they're another team that's just kind of up there. I really don't necessarily know what to make of them. I just think that the competition around them is going to be a little bit too heavy based on who they have. It was kind of a toss-up between them and St. Louis and last, but I kind of hope just for the sake that it's St. Louis, because they're really getting on my nerves. Their complacency. Even with guys like Hunter Green on Cincinnati, I still had to go Elly, because Hunter Green actually just got one of the highest pitching WARs too, which I did not know until I looked this up. 16, we got another really spread out talent-wise team, a team that just acquired potentially a Cy Young Award winner in the Arizona Diamondbacks. But as of right now, I got to go with Kentel Marte. I got to say Kentel Marte, he had a really good year. Again, we're getting to a point where the competition's really stiff, so it's kind of hard to rank them. But yeah, Marte, 6.8 WAR, 36 home runs, and batted almost 300 this year. So I really think the Diamondbacks can come in probably third or second place, and I think they're going to be in the playoffs again this year. I think that they're a lock for the playoffs here, especially with Corbin Burnes. I think Corbin Burnes is going to be one of the better pitchers in the league, but we'll figure out about that in my award predictions episode here in 2 weeks. And then finally, we're at number 15, and we got an NL Central team here. We have one of the best young players in the game. We have the man himself, Paul Skeens. Love Paul Skeens. That man is insane. He's got the life, but he was insane this year. If he can stay healthy with that velocity, he may be a top 5 pitcher next year. I mean, he already is, to be honest with you. 5.9 WAR, 1.96 ERA, 170 Ks. The man could throw over 100 miles an hour after 120 plus pitches we saw with LSU, which was just crazy. And a lot of people have been coming at Derek Shelton for limiting him as much as he has, but I think he's smart with a guy like that velocity. You got to limit him. I think it's a good move to limit him. And him being injured and him having these long-term rotator cuff type injuries that you see with these flamethrowers, that could be really bad and that could shorten his career. And with the way that the Pirates are building, this is a long road up. You want to have him be good because you want those playoff runs here like 2, 3 years, 4 years from now while he's still under contract. So with that being said, those are the best player on each team rankings, 30 through 15. We're going to go have number 14 through number 1 here next week on Dugout Debrief, but we're having a more brief show here on Dugout Debrief. We got our trivia next. So last week, my question was, which former MLB hothead was nicknamed Big Z? And that is the man himself, Carlos Zambrano, the man, the enemy of Gatorade coolers and umpires, the man who ejected an umpire after he got ejected. So give me Carlos Zambrano. He was Big Z. He was just in my head for some reason. I think I saw a TikTok about him, and I was like, I'll do that as a trivia question. So that being said, this week's trivia question is kind of just a randomly weird one. It's one I just kind of thought of out of nowhere. Who is the second oldest active MLB player going into 2024? And this is a guy that I've seen pitch before, and I just gave you a hint there. He's a pitcher. So I've seen him pitch before. He's a jack of all trades and a journeyman. So I'll give you a couple more hints there. So put your answer in the comments if you wish. And with that being said, I really don't have much else to talk about. Next week, we'll have more rankings of teams' best players. After that, we're going to have award predictions for 2025. And then pretty much after that, it's going to be just season preview. I might have a live here soon within the next few weeks, trying to get the man himself, Jason, on, maybe get Aaron on, maybe get Michael on. Speaking of that, you can catch Jason on 3 from Deep talking NBA. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. You can catch Michael on Add a Pocket, and you can catch myself, Aaron Schneider, and everyone else on this Boom Broadcasting team on the Gridiron Address every single Sunday. I was finally back after a hiatus, and all of a sudden now he's calling me the co-host. Like, what's all these responsibilities, Aaron? Come on now. But I want to thank you once again for tuning in to Dugout Debrief, and I hope you have a great week.